The Hollow Earth energy readings had been erratic for weeks, but nothing could have prepared Dr. Eileen Andrews for what appeared on her monitors at 0347 hours. A spike unlike anything in Monarch's database, not Godzilla's atomic signature, not Kong's bioelectric field, not even the residual traces from Ghidorah's terraforming attempt. This was something else entirely. Dr. Andrews, you need to see this. Mark Russell's voice carried an edge of concern that made her look up from her coffee. The Monarch outpost in Tokyo Bay had been relatively quiet since the Titan conflict subsided, reduced to monitoring duty and cleanup operations. Quiet was supposed to be good. The holographic display showed a swirling vortex of energy forming 3 miles offshore, churning the Pacific into a maelstrom. Purple and green light pulsed from its center, colors that had no business existing in nature. The energy signature spiked again, and every sensor in the facility screamed warnings. Is it another Titan emerging? Andrews asked, already reaching for the emergency protocols. Negative. The signature is small. Human-sized, maybe slightly larger. But the energy output is. Russell's explanation cut off as the vortex collapsed inward with a thunderclap that rattled windows across Tokyo. And then there was silence. Kafka Hibino gasped as he materialized in midair and plummeted 15 feet into frigid seawater. The impact drove the air from his lungs, and for a moment, pure panic seized him. The ocean was wrong, too cold, too vast, too empty of the familiar pollution and debris fields he'd grown accustomed to patrolling with the monster sweepers. The sky above held stars he didn't recognize, constellations that made no sense. His Defense Force training kicked in. Survive first, ask questions later. He swam toward the distant lights of a shoreline, each stroke reminding him that his body ached in ways that suggested he'd been through something traumatic. The last thing he remembered was responding to a Kaiju alert in Sagamihara. There had been an explosion, a tearing sensation, like reality itself was ripping apart. And then, nothing. Until now. The swim took 40 minutes, and by the time Kafka dragged himself onto a concrete pier, his muscles screamed in protest. He collapsed on the cold surface, chest heaving, and stared up at the sky. Tokyo. It looked like Tokyo, with its familiar skyline and neon glow. But something was fundamentally wrong. The buildings were taller in some places, shorter in others. The advertisements displayed companies he'd never heard of. And there, painted on the side of a warehouse in massive letters, Monarch Outpost Tokyo, authorized personnel only. Monarch? Kafka's mind raced. He'd never heard of any organization called Monarch. The Japan Defense Force, sure. Monster Sweepers Incorporated? Absolutely. But Monarch? His hand went instinctively to his pocket for his phone. Gone. His Defense Force ID badge? Missing. Everything except the soaked clothes on his back had vanished in the transition. Kafka sat up, forcing his exhausted body to move. He needed answers, needed to figure out where or when he was. The sound of helicopter rotors cut through the night air. Kafka looked up to see 3 military helicopters approaching fast, searchlights sweeping the waterfront. They weren't Defense Force choppers. The insignia on their sides showed a stylized M, surrounded by what looked like ancient symbols. Monarch again. Attention, unknown contact. A voice boomed from a loudspeaker, first in Japanese, then in English. You have emerged from an unauthorized energy event. Remain where you are. Monarch security is en route. Do not attempt to flee. Kafka's instincts warred with each other. Part of him, the Defense Force officer part, wanted to comply, to explain the situation, to work with whatever authority existed here. But another part, the part that had lived in secret with a Kaiju parasite bonded to his body, recognized danger when he saw it. The helicopters were military grade, armed with weapons he didn't recognize. The searchlights pinned him like a specimen on a slide. And somewhere in his gut, where the Kaiju presence usually lurked dormant, he felt a stirring. A response to threat. A readiness to transform. I said remain where you are. The voice carried more urgency now. We have you surrounded. This is your final warning. Kafka raised his hand slowly, trying to appear non-threatening. "I'm not your enemy," he shouted back in Japanese. "There's been some kind of mistake. I'm with the Japan Defense Force, 3rd Division. My name is Kafka Hibino." The lead helicopter opened fire. Not with bullets, with some kind of electrical net that crackled with blue energy. Kafka dove to the side on pure instinct, the net missing him by inches and slamming into the concrete where he'd been standing. The impact left scorch marks and the smell of ozone. They weren't trying to talk. They were trying to capture him. The kaiju inside him surged, responding to the threat, to the adrenaline flooding his system. Kafka felt the familiar sensation building, the transformation that he'd spent months learning to control, to suppress, to use only when absolutely necessary. But here, now, surrounded by unknown forces in an unknown world? "No, no, no," he muttered, trying to push it down. "Not here. Not now." Another net launched. This one caught his leg, and electricity coursed through his body. Pain exploded up his spine, and Kafka screamed. The kaiju presence inside him roared in response, primal and protective. He felt his skin beginning to ripple, felt the transformation starting whether he wanted it or not. Through the pain, Kafka saw soldiers rappelling from the helicopters, wearing armor that looked like something out of a science fiction movie. They moved with military precision, weapons trained on him, ready to fire again. And in that moment, Kafka Hibino made a choice that would change everything. He stopped fighting the transformation and let the kaiju emerge. His body erupted in dark, organic armor. Muscle mass expanded exponentially. His senses sharpened to superhuman levels. In 3 seconds, the exhausted man on the pier became Kaiju number 8, standing 12 feet tall and radiating power that made the Monarch soldiers stumble backward in shock. What the hell? It's transforming. All units open fire. But Kafka was already moving, his enhanced speed carrying him off the pier in a single leap that covered 100 meters. He landed on a warehouse roof, the metal buckling under his weight, and kept running. Behind him, the helicopters gave chase, and somewhere in the distance, alarms began to wail across Tokyo. Kafka didn't know where he was. He didn't know what Monarch was, or why they'd attacked him on sight. But as he ran through an unfamiliar city in a body that marked him as a monster, one thing became terrifyingly clear. In this world, he wasn't a hero in hiding. He was prey. Word count: 1,151. Before we continue Kafka's desperate flight through this strange new world, I want to hear from you. If you had the power to transform into a kaiju, but arrived in a world where monsters are hunted or worshipped as gods, would you reveal your human side immediately or hide it until you understood the rules? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this crossover chaos, smash that like button, share this with fellow kaiju fans, and subscribe for more epic monster mashups. Plus, I want to hear your Star Wars crossover ideas. What character would you want to see enter the galaxy far, far away? Drop your Star Wars What If title suggestions in the comments, and it might become the next story. The Monarch Containment Protocol had been activated exactly 7 times in the organization's 70-year history. Each time marked a moment when something emerged that threatened to rewrite humanity's understanding of the natural order. Dr. Eileen Andrews had authorized 2 of those protocols herself, once for Ghidorah's arrival, once for the Muto Prime emergence. Now she was authorizing the 8th. Lock down all civilian sectors within a 5-mile radius, she ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting across the command center. Ground all air traffic. I want satellite coverage on that thing every second. And somebody tell me what the hell we're dealing with. Mark Russell pulled up thermal imaging on the main display. The creature, if that's what it was, appeared as a bright red silhouette racing across Tokyo's industrial district at speeds that shouldn't be possible for something that size. 12 feet tall, roughly humanoid configuration. Bipedal locomotion. Surface temperature elevated, but not critical. It's fast, Doctor. Faster than any Titan we've recorded except maybe Rodden. Faster than Godzilla? Andrews asked. In short bursts? Yes. But here's what doesn't make sense. Russell highlighted portions of a thermal scan. The energy signature is inconsistent with known Titan biology. It's almost like it's not fully organic. Or it's organic in a way we've never seen before. On the screen, the creature vaulted over a 6-story building in a single bound, landed in a crouch that cracked the pavement, and immediately pivoted toward the waterfront. Military helicopters pursued, but it was clear they were outmatched in terms of speed and agility. "Where's it heading?" Andrews demanded. "If I had to guess, away from us. Every direction change has been evasive, not aggressive." "Doctor, I don't think it wants to fight." Andrews considered this. In her experience, Titans that didn't want to fight usually had a reason. Godzilla fought to maintain balance. Kong fought to protect territory. The Mutos fought to reproduce. But a creature that fled, that avoided conflict despite clearly having the capability to cause massive damage, that was something new. "Get me a direct line to the Prime Minister's office," she said, "and prep the Orca. If this thing responds to bioacoustics, I want options." Kafka's enhanced senses painted Tokyo in overwhelming detail. He could hear conversations happening 3 blocks away, smell the exhaust from cars that hadn't even passed him yet, feel the vibrations of the pursuing helicopters through the soles of his armored feet. It was simultaneously exhilarating and terrifying. He'd transformed dozens of times during his training with the Defense Force, but never like this. Never in full view of the public. Never while running for his life through a city that looked like home, but felt alien in every way that mattered. His kaiju form wanted to fight. Every instinct screamed at him to turn around, to confront the helicopters, to eliminate the threat through overwhelming force. But Kafka's human consciousness remained in control, barely, and he knew that fighting would only confirm whatever suspicions Monarch had about him. A missile streaked past his head, close enough that he felt the heat wash. It impacted a billboard behind him, erupting in flames that lit up the night sky. Kafka snarled and pushed his legs harder, his fortitude at maybe 30%. He didn't want to go higher, didn't want to reveal his full capabilities until he understood what he was up against. The waterfront approached fast. Kafka's mind raced through options. He could swim, his kaiju form was tireless, could probably make it to open ocean. But then what? This wasn't his world. He had no allies, no resources, no idea where safety might exist. A new sound cut through the chaos, a low, resonant pulse that seemed to vibrate through his entire body. It wasn't painful exactly, but it demanded attention. Kafka stumbled mid-stride, his enhanced hearing picking up frequencies that shouldn't exist, tones that seemed to speak directly to something primal in his kaiju biology. The Orca. Though he didn't know what it was called, he recognized it instinctively as a call, a summons, a challenge. "Stop running." The voice came through speakers mounted on the lead helicopter, different from before. Female, measured, almost compassionate. "We're not trying to kill you. We're trying to understand what you are. That sound you're hearing? It's how we communicate with creatures like you. If you can understand me, if there's any intelligence in there, please, just stop." Kafka's sprint slowed to a jog, then to a walk. His massive chest heaved with exertion, not from physical exhaustion, but from the emotional weight of the decision before him. Transform back, reveal his human nature, and trust these people? Or keep running, cement his status as a monster, and survive alone in a world he didn't understand? The Orca's pulse came again, gentler this time, almost soothing. He stopped. The helicopters circled, but didn't fire. Soldiers maintained their positions, but didn't advance. In the sudden stillness, Kafka became aware of how quiet the city had become around him. No traffic, no pedestrians. Just him, the military, and whatever Monarch was. "That's good," the voice continued. "That's very good. Now, I'm going to ask you to do something that might seem strange. If you're in control, if you're choosing not to attack, I need you to show me. Raise your right hand." Slowly, Kafka's kaiju instinct rebelled against the idea of showing submission. But his human mind recognized an olive branch when he saw one. He raised his right hand, the movement deliberate and controlled. He heard gasps through the helicopter's audio feed. "My God," someone whispered. It's sapient. Mark, are you seeing this? Dr. Andrews, we need to reassess our approach immediately. This isn't a mindless titan. It's... The ocean erupted. Kafka spun toward the sound, his combat instincts flaring to life. The water glowed with an eerie blue light that grew brighter by the second. And even without knowing what was coming, every cell in his kaiju body recognized the presence of an alpha predator. Godzilla rose from Tokyo Bay like a living mountain, 393 feet of ancient, atomic-powered apex predator. Dorsal plates glowing with radioactive energy. Eyes that had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations locked onto the 12-foot Kaiju standing on the waterfront. Kafka's fortitude spiked involuntarily to 60%, his body flooding with power in response to the threat. But even at full strength, he was barely tall enough to reach Godzilla's ankle. The size difference was incomprehensible, like an ant trying to intimidate an elephant. The king of the monsters took one thunderous step onto land, and the entire district shook. Water cascaded off his massive frame. His tail, longer than a city block, dragged through the bay and sent waves crashing into the piers. And then Godzilla roared. The sound was beyond comprehension. It wasn't just noise. It was a declaration of dominance that rattled windows across Tokyo, that triggered car alarms for miles, that made Kafka's bones vibrate inside his armored body. This was the sound of nature's fury given voice, of an alpha asserting territorial rights to creatures that had evolved to recognize and fear it. Kafka wanted to run. Every survival instinct screamed at him to flee, to transform back, to hide. But he stood frozen, transfixed by the sheer, overwhelming presence of the creature before him. Godzilla's eyes narrowed. His dorsal plates pulsed brighter, charging with atomic energy. His mouth began to glow with building heat. The helicopters scattered immediately. All units, fall back. Fall back now. Andrews, we've got a Code Godzilla situation. Repeat Code Godzilla. Kafka raised both hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of non-aggression. His voice, distorted by the kaiju form, came out as a guttural approximation of Japanese. Not enemy. Not threat. Godzilla paused. His head tilted fractionally, a movement that seemed almost curious for a creature his size. The atomic energy in his mouth dimmed slightly, though it didn't dissipate entirely. For a long moment, the king of the monsters studied the tiny kaiju before him. And Kafka Hibino realized with absolute certainty that his life hung on what Godzilla decided in the next 10 seconds. In a world where size determined the pecking order, where power was measured in megatons and radioactivity, how did a human-sized kaiju prove he wasn't a threat to a god? Dr. Ishiro Serizawa had spent his life studying Godzilla, and even he had never seen the Alpha Titan hesitate like this. Through Monarch's satellite feed, broadcast to outposts worldwide from their primary command center, the world watched as the king of the monsters evaluated a creature that barely reached his knee. Godzilla's heart rate is elevated but stable, a technician reported from the biometric station. Radiation levels are climbing, but holding at defensive postures, not offensive. He's assessing. Assessing what? Director Gilliman demanded from Washington via video link. Whether to step on it or incinerate it. Serizawa leaned closer to the monitor, studying Godzilla's body language with decades of expertise. Neither. He's trying to understand what it is. Look at the posture. Weight distributed evenly. Tail neutral. No territorial displays. Godzilla isn't threatened. He's curious. Curious. Gilliman's skepticism was palpable. That thing appeared out of an energy rift we can't explain, transformed in front of our forces. And you're telling me Godzilla is curious? The creature raised its hands when asked. Dr. Andrews interjected from Tokyo. It responded to verbal commands. It attempted communication. Director, we're not dealing with a typical Titan. We're dealing with something that thinks. On screen, Godzilla took another step forward, closing the distance to barely 50 meters. The smaller kaiju, specimen designation pending, didn't flee. Instead, it maintained its non-aggressive posture while slowly, deliberately, shifting its stance to a kneeling position. Is it submitting? Mark Russell asked, his voice tight with tension. Sarazella's eyes widened. No, it's showing respect. There's a difference. Submission is fear. This is acknowledgement. Kafka's knees hit the pavement hard enough to crack concrete, but he barely felt it. Every ounce of his concentration focused on projecting non-aggression, while his kaiju instincts howled at the indignity of kneeling. In the defense force, he'd been taught never to show weakness to kaiju. It only encouraged attack. But Godzilla wasn't a mindless beast. The intelligence in those ancient eyes was unmistakable. This was a creature that thought, that judged, that made decisions based on more than pure instinct. Kafka bowed his head, keeping his eyes lowered, but his senses hyper-alert. "Not your enemy," he repeated, forcing the words through a vocal system not designed for human speech. "New here. Lost. Please." Godzilla's rumble was so deep that Kafka felt it in his chest cavity. It wasn't a roar, more like a sound of consideration, the way a human might hum while thinking. The massive head lowered slightly, bringing one of those enormous eyes level with Kafka's kneeling form. For several heartbeats, they stayed like that. David and Goliath, except David had no sling and Goliath held all the cards. Then Godzilla snorted, a sound like a steam engine venting pressure, and straightened. His dorsal plates dimmed from bright blue to a soft, ambient glow. He turned his massive body with surprising grace and began walking back toward the ocean, each step an earthquake unto itself. The message was clear. Asterisk, you're not worth my time. Yet, asterisk. Kafka remained kneeling until Godzilla's form disappeared beneath the waves, until the last ripple faded from the bay, until the silence that followed felt almost oppressive in its completeness. Only then did he allow himself to breathe, his fortitude dropping back down to manageable levels. "Holy shit," he muttered in his distorted voice. "What the hell was that?" "That," a new voice said from behind him, "was you passing your first test." Kafka spun, combat ready, to find a woman standing 30 feet away. She wore monarch insignia on her jacket and held what looked like some kind of sonic device, the source of those pulses he'd felt earlier. Behind her, soldiers maintained defensive positions, but their weapons were lowered. "My name is Dr. Eileen Andrews," she continued, her voice calm and measured despite facing a 12-foot kaiju. "And you just did something I've never seen any creature do. You communicated with Godzilla, and he chose not to kill you. That makes you either incredibly lucky or incredibly important. Possibly both." Kafka straightened slowly, keeping his movements careful. His mind raced. Should he transform back? Reveal his human nature? Or maintain the kaiju form as protection? Dr. Andrews seemed to read his hesitation. "I know you can understand me. Your body language, your responses, they're too deliberate to be instinctive. So, I'm going to make you an offer. Come with us. Voluntarily. Let us understand what you are, where you came from. In exchange, we won't treat you as a threat. We'll treat you as..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "As a person, regardless of what form you're wearing." The word person struck something deep in Kafka's chest. In his world, he'd fought to be recognized as more than a monster, to prove that the kaiju inside him didn't define his humanity. And now, in this strange universe, someone was offering him that recognition without even knowing he was human underneath. "Can transform," Kafka said slowly, the words difficult but necessary. "Human. Inside." The effect on Dr. Andrews was immediate. Her eyes widened, and she held up a hand to stop the soldiers from reacting. "You're saying you can become human? You're not a titan at all. You're a human who transforms." Kafka nodded. "Then show me, please. Transform back, and we'll talk like civilized people. I give you my word as the acting director of Monarch Tokyo, no one will harm you." It was a leap of faith. Kafka had no reason to trust this woman, this organization, this world. But he also had nowhere else to go, no allies, no resources. And something in Dr. Andrews' voice reminded him of Captain Ishiro, that same steel wrapped in compassion, that same willingness to see beyond appearances. He let the transformation reverse. The process was always slightly painful, armor retracting, muscle mass condensing. enhanced senses dulling back to human limitations. In 15 seconds, Kaiju number 8 became Kafka Hibino again, standing in torn, soaked clothing, looking utterly exhausted and completely vulnerable. The soldiers' weapons came up instinctively, but Dr. Andrews' sharp command stopped them. "Stand down. All of you, stand down now." She approached Kafka slowly, studying him with open fascination. "You're human. Completely, genuinely human. But you can become a kaiju." "Yeah," Kafka said in Japanese, his own voice sounding strange after the distortion of his transformed state. "It's complicated. And before you ask, no, I don't know how I got here. One moment I was in my Tokyo responding to a kaiju alert. The next I'm drowning in yours." "Your Tokyo?" Dr. Andrews' scientific mind latched onto the phrasing immediately. "You're saying you're from an alternate dimension? Another Earth? Maybe? I don't know. Where I'm from, kaiju appear regularly. We have defense forces dedicated to fighting them. Monster sweepers who clean up after battles. It's been that way for decades. But we don't have." He gestured helplessly at the bay where Godzilla had vanished. "We don't have anything like that. Our kaiju are dangerous, sure, but they're not gods." Dr. Andrews pulled out a tablet, already taking notes with the fervor of a scientist encountering a revolutionary discovery. "And your transformation? Is it technological? Biological? Radiation-based?" Kafka hesitated. The truth about the talking kaiju parasite that had bonded with him sounded insane even by his world standards. But Dr. Andrews seemed genuinely interested in understanding, not judging. "Biological," he said finally. "I was infected, or maybe bonded is a better word, with a kaiju organism. It merged with my cells, gave me the ability to transform. I can control it, mostly, but it has its own instincts. Its own personality, I guess." "Symbiotic relationship," Dr. Andrews murmured, typing rapidly. "That would explain the energy signature inconsistencies. You're not generating power like Titans do. You're accessing it through biological transformation." "Fascinating." A helicopter descended nearby, and Mark Russell jogged over to join them. "Doctor, we need to move. Godzilla's departure has drawn attention. We've got Japanese self-defense forces inbound, news helicopters evading the no-fly zone, and half the internet is already posting footage of the new Titan. If we don't secure this situation now." "Agreed." Dr. Andrews turned to Kafka. "Mr. Hibino." "Kafka Hibino." "Mr. Hibino, I'm offering you protective custody. Not as a prisoner, but as a guest. Monarch has facilities where we can keep you safe while we figure out how to send you home. Or if that's not possible, while we help you adapt to this world. But that offer expires the moment other organizations get involved. Apex Cybernetics, for one, would pay billions for someone like you." Kafka didn't know what Apex Cybernetics was, but he recognized a warning when he heard one. "And if I say no, then you're on your own in a world where humans and Titans have been at war for decades, where your ability to transform makes you either a weapon or a target, and where Godzilla has now marked you as something worth remembering." Dr. Andrews met his eyes levelly. "I'm not trying to scare you, Mr. Hibino. I'm trying to save your life." Kafka thought of Captain Ishiro, of Director General Shinomiya, of all the people in his world who'd taken a chance on him despite the monster living in his cells. Maybe trust was all he had left. "Okay," he said, "but I want answers too. About this world, about Godzilla, about why that thing looked at me like I was, I don't know, like I was worth sparing." Dr. Andrews smiled, the expression both warm and slightly sad. "Mr. Hibino, if I had answers to why Godzilla does anything, I'd have won a dozen Nobel Prizes by now. But I can tell you this, he let you live because he saw something in you. And in 70 years of studying Titans, I've learned to trust his judgment." She extended her hand. Kafka shook it, the gesture feeling absurdly formal, given that he'd been a giant monster 30 seconds ago. "Welcome to the Monsterverse," Dr. Andrews said. "Try not to get stepped on." The Monarch facility, designated Castle Bravo, sat on an artificial island 40 miles from Tokyo. a fortress of concrete and steel designed to withstand Titan attacks. Kafka watched through the helicopter window as they approached, his exhausted mind trying to process the scale of infrastructure dedicated to studying creatures like Godzilla. Built after the 2014 San Francisco incident, Dr. Andrews explained, noting his attention. When Godzilla revealed himself to the world, governments realized we needed dedicated facilities for Titan research. Castle Bravo is one of 12 primary outposts globally. 2014, Kafka's head snapped toward her. Godzilla appeared in 2014. That was only. He trailed off, doing the mental math. In his world, 2014 had been relatively calm. No major kaiju incidents, just standard cleanup operations. What year is it now? 2027, Mark Russell answered from the co-pilot seat. You're saying in your world, Godzilla didn't emerge 10 years ago? In my world, there is no Godzilla. At least, not that I know of. Kafka pressed his hand against the window, watching the facility grow larger. Our kaiju are different. Smaller mostly. Identifiable by number classifications. The biggest I've seen was maybe 50 meters tall. Nothing like. He gestured helplessly. Nothing like what I just met. Dr. Andrews and Russell exchanged glances that Kafka couldn't quite read. Mr. Ibino, Andrews said carefully, in our world, Titans have existed for millions of years. They're not anomalies or mutations. They're Earth's original apex predators. Godzilla, Kong, Rodan, Mothra, they're part of a natural order that predates human civilization. When they awaken, it's not an invasion. It's a reclamation. The helicopter began its descent toward a landing pad marked with the monarch insignia. Kafka's mind reeled. A world where kaiju weren't invaders, but natives? Where creatures the size of mountains were considered natural. It was simultaneously terrifying and oddly beautiful. How do you survive? He asked quietly. Carefully, Russell said with dark humor. And by hoping Godzilla stays on our side. The medical bay was state-of-the-art, equipped with scanning technology that made the Defense Force's equipment look like antiques. Kafka sat on an examination table, while Dr. Ling, Monarch's chief xenobiologist, ran every test short of dissection. Remarkable, Ling muttered, studying a holographic display of Kafka's cellular structure. The kaiju organism is completely integrated with your human DNA. It's not parasitic, it's genuinely symbiotic. Your cells produce energy signatures similar to Titan bioradiation, but on a microscale. Mr. Hibino, do you have any idea how revolutionary this is? In my world, it made me a freak, Kafka said flatly. Here, I'm guessing it makes me a lab rat. Dr. Andrews, observing from a corner, shook her head. You're a guest, remember? These scans are voluntary. Dr. Ling, what about compatibility with this universe's physics? Ling pulled up another set of readings. That's where it gets interesting. His energy signature is stable, but it's not drawing from the hollow earth like Titans do. It's self-contained, almost like a closed circuit. That might explain why Godzilla didn't register him as a territorial threat. He's not tapping into the same power source. The hollow earth? Kafka asked. The world beneath our world, Andrews explained. A subterranean ecosystem where most Titans originate. It's connected to the surface through ancient tunnels and generates massive amounts of energy. Titans like Godzilla and Kong are essentially biological reactors powered by that energy. But you, she studied him thoughtfully. You're something else entirely. A commotion outside the medical bay drew everyone's attention. Raised voices, the heavy footfalls of security personnel. And then the doors burst open to admit a woman in an expensive suit flanked by private military contractors. Dr. Andrews, I've been trying to reach you for 3 hours, the woman said with the kind of smile that never reached her eyes. Imagine my surprise when satellite footage shows Monarch harboring an unregistered Titan without proper governmental notification. Andrews' expression hardened. Director Hampton, I wasn't aware Apex Cybernetics had clearance for this facility. We don't need clearance when national security is involved. Hampton's gaze locked onto Kafka with the intensity of a predator spotting prey. Mr. Hibino, is it? I'm Maya Hampton, Director of Apex Cybernetics Special Projects Division. I'd like to discuss an opportunity that could benefit us both. Kafka didn't like her instantly. Something about the way she looked at him, not as a person, but as an asset to be acquired, reminded him of the worst elements of the Defense Force bureaucracy. Not interested, he said bluntly. Hampton's smile didn't waver. You haven't heard my offer yet. Apex specializes in human-Titan interface technology. We've successfully created mechanical systems that can rival Titan strength. With your unique biology, we could. I said no. Mr. Hibino, you're stranded in an unfamiliar world with no resources, no support network, and a power that makes you a target for every government and organization on the planet. Apex can offer you protection, compensation, and purpose. All we ask in return is your cooperation with our research division. Dr. Andrews stepped between them. He's under Monarch protection, Director Hampton. Whatever proposal Apex has can go through proper channels. Channels that you've been stonewalling for months. Yes, I'm aware. Hampton's pleasant facade cracked slightly. Dr. Andrews, Apex has government contracts that supersede Monarch's authority. If we determine that Mr. Hibino represents a potential asset for national defense, then you'll need to prove he's a threat first, Andrews countered. Which he isn't. He's a refugee from an alternate dimension who transformed defensively when fired upon. Hardly grounds for seizure. Hampton's contractors shifted positions subtly, hands drifting toward weapons. Kafka's fortitude spiked involuntarily, his body responding to the threat. Dr. Ling's monitors shrieked warnings as his energy signature flared. Everyone needs to calm down, Mark Russell said, moving to stand beside Andrews. Director Hampton, this facility is sovereign Monarch territory under international treaty. You have no jurisdiction here. International treaties written before Titans returned, Hampton said coldly. The world has changed, Mr. Russell. Apex is ensuring humanity has the tools to survive that change, with or without Monarch's cooperation. She turned back to Kafka, ignoring Andrews entirely. Mr. Hibino, I'm leaving you my card. When you realize that Monarch can't protect you, and they can't, not from what's coming, call me. Apex takes care of its assets. She placed a business card on the examination table and departed with her contractors, leaving a tension in the room thick enough to choke on. Dr. Andrews picked up the card and crumpled it. Don't trust her. Apex Cybernetics nearly destroyed Hong Kong trying to control Godzilla with a mechanical titan. They see creatures like you as resources to be exploited, nothing more. Noted, Kafka said, his heart still racing. But she mentioned something. What's coming? What did she mean? Andrews and Russell exchanged another one of those loaded glances. There's something you need to understand about this world, Andrews said slowly. The Titans aren't just waking up randomly. They're responding to something. An imbalance in Earth's natural order. Godzilla, Kong, the others, they're trying to restore equilibrium. But there are forces, both human and otherwise, that want to exploit that chaos. And Apex is one of those forces. Apex wants to replace Titans with machines, Russell said. They think humanity should control the natural order instead of coexisting with it. It's led to complications. Kafka absorbed this, his understanding of the Monsterverse deepening. In his world, humans fought Kaiju to survive. Here, the battle lines were far more complex. Some humans wanted to destroy Titans, some wanted to control them, and some, like Monarch, wanted to understand them. Where do I fit in all this? He asked. Dr. Andrews met his eyes seriously. That's up to you, Mr. Hibino. You're unique, human, and Kaiju, small enough to interact with our world, but powerful enough to survive in theirs. You could be a bridge between species, if you choose to be. Or I could just want to go home. That too, Andrews acknowledged. Dr. Chun is analyzing the energy signature from your arrival. If we can reverse engineer the dimensional rift, we might be able to send you back. But that will take time, and in the meantime, you need to decide what role you want to play here. Kafka thought about Kokoro, Reno, Captain Ishiro, everyone he'd left behind in his world, probably thinking he was dead. The idea of getting home, of returning to his life as a Defense Force officer, was almost overwhelming in its appeal. But he also remembered Godzilla's eyes. That ancient, knowing gaze that had judged him and found him worth something. Worth sparing. Worth remembering. "I want to learn," Kafka said finally. "About this world, about the Titans, about why Godzilla let me live. If I'm stuck here, I need to understand the rules. And if there's a way home, I need to be ready for whatever comes next." Dr. Andrews smiled. "Then welcome to Monarch Academy, Mr. Hibino. Orientation starts tomorrow. Try to get some rest. You've had a hell of a first day." As they led him to quarters, Kafka couldn't shake the feeling that his encounter with Godzilla was just the beginning. The king of the monsters had spared him for a reason. He just hoped he'd survive long enough to find out what that reason was. Kafka's quarters were surprisingly comfortable, a small apartment with a bed, desk, bathroom, and a window overlooking the Pacific. He collapsed onto the mattress fully clothed, intending to rest for just a moment, but exhaustion claimed him within seconds. His dreams were fractured and strange. Godzilla's eyes staring at him from impossible distances. The sensation of falling through purple-green rifts that never ended. Captain Ishiro's voice calling his name, growing fainter with each repetition. And beneath it all, a deep thrumming sound like a heartbeat that wasn't his own. He woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee wafting from a tray someone had left on his desk. A note in neat handwriting read, * orientation at 0900. Cafeteria on level 3. Dr. Andrews *. Kafka checked his watch, a replacement Monarch had provided, and swore. It was 0845. He had 15 minutes. The shower was quick, the coffee was heaven, and the clean clothes laid out for him. Simple gray pants and a black shirt with the Monarch insignia fit well enough. As he dressed, Kafka caught his reflection in the mirror and paused. He looked the same. Same tired eyes, same messy hair that never quite cooperated. Same build that was respectable for a 32-year-old, but nothing special. Nothing about his appearance suggested he could transform into a 12-foot kaiju capable of facing down gods. "Still you in there," he muttered to his reflection. "Just you in a really weird place." The kaiju presence inside him stirred, a wordless sensation of agreement. It had been quiet since the transformation yesterday, almost dormant, but Kafka could feel it there. Patient, watchful, ready. The orientation room was actually a massive auditorium with holographic displays showing Titan activity across the globe. Kafka entered to find about 20 people already seated, scientists, military personnel, and a few individuals whose roles he couldn't immediately identify. Dr. Andrews stood at the podium, discussing something with a tall African-American man in military dress. They both looked up when Kafka entered. "Mr. Hibino, perfect timing," Andrews said. "Everyone, this is Kafka Hibino, our newest consultant. Kafka, this is Colonel Foster, head of Castle Bravo Security." Foster extended a hand, his grip firm but not aggressive. The man who made Godzilla curious. That's one hell of a first impression. "Wasn't exactly planned," Kafka said, taking a seat near the back. The orientation covered Monarch's history, how the organization formed in 1946 after nuclear tests awakened ancient creatures, how they'd operated in secrecy for decades, how the 2014 San Francisco incident forced them into the public eye. Kafka absorbed it all, his mind cataloging the differences from his world. No kaiju-numbered threats here, just names pulled from mythology and ancient legends. Godzilla, Mothra, Raden, King Ghidorah, each one a force of nature with its own territory, behavior patterns, and role in Earth's ecosystem. The current count is 17 confirmed Titans, Dr. Andrews explained, gesturing to a world map dotted with markers. 12 are dormant or in designated territories. 3 are actively migrating. 2 are unaccounted for. "Unaccounted for?" someone asked. "Meaning we lost track of them," Mark Russell clarified. Scylla was last seen near the Arctic Circle 6 months ago. Amhuluk disappeared into the Amazon rainforest and hasn't emerged since. "We're monitoring, but Titans are very good at hiding when they want to." A holographic display showed footage of various titans. Kafka watched, transfixed, as creatures the size of skyscrapers moved with impossible grace. A mammoth-like beast with massive tusks. A spider-like horror with too many legs. Something that looked like a living mountain covered in vegetation. And then the display showed Kong. "The last of the Kongs," Andrews said, her voice carrying a note of sadness. "He's currently residing in the hollow earth, protecting what remains of his ancestral home." Unlike most titans, Kong has shown remarkable intelligence and the capacity for tool use. He's also formed bonds with humans, specifically with Jia, a young Iwi girl who... An alarm cut through the presentation. Red lights flashed across the auditorium. The holographic displays switched to a live satellite feed showing a coastal city. Kafka recognized the architecture as Southeast Asian, possibly Vietnam or Thailand. And rising from the ocean was a titan. Classification. Andrews demanded, already moving toward the command console. "Analyzing now," a technician responded. "Bioacoustic signature matches." "Oh no, it's Tiamat. She's supposed to be dormant in the Stone Mountain containment area." The creature on screen was serpentine, easily 400 feet long, with a crown of bony protrusions and bioluminescent patterns running down her sides. She moved through the shallow water with lethal grace, her massive head swaying as if searching for something. "Why is she active?" Foster asked, his hand already on his radio. "What triggered her?" "Unknown, but she's heading directly for the city. Population 2 million. We need to evacuate now." Dr. Andrews made a decision with the kind of speed that came from too much experience with disasters. "Activate the Orca. See if we can redirect her back to open ocean. Foster, coordinate with local military. Standard evacuation protocols. Russell, get me a direct line to Sarazawa and..." "Wait," Kafka interrupted, standing up. "Can I see that footage again?" Andrews shot him a look that was part annoyance, part curiosity, but she nodded to the technician. The feed rewound, showing Tiamat's emergence in slow motion. Kafka studied the creature's movements, his defense force training kicking in despite the scale difference. "She's not attacking. Look at her body language. She's agitated, defensive. Something scared her out of her territory." "Scared a 400-foot titan?" Russell said skeptically. "What could possibly?" The water behind Tiamat erupted. Another titan emerged, this one covered in jagged, crystalline protrusions that glowed with an angry red light. It was smaller than Tiamat, but broader, more aggressive in its movements. As they watched, it lunged at Tiamat, its crystalline spines extending like weapons. "New contact," the technician shouted. "Unknown classification. Bioacoustic signature doesn't match any known titan in the database." The two creatures clashed in the shallow water, sending waves crashing into the city's waterfront. Buildings crumbled from the shock waves alone. Even through the satellite feed, Kafka could see people fleeing in panic. "This is exactly what Apex warned about," someone muttered. "Uncontrolled Titan conflicts. We need Mechagodzilla back online, we need." Mechagodzilla was destroyed, Andrews snapped. "And for good reason. Foster, how long until evacuation is complete?" "Minimum 30 minutes, and that's optimistic. Tiamat won't last that long." Mark Russell pointed to the screen where the crystalline titan was systematically overpowering the serpent. "That thing is hunting her, and it doesn't care about the city in the way." Kafka watched the battle, his mind racing. In his world, the defense force would be mobilizing, sending in officers with kaiju powers to intercept and neutralize the threat. But here, humanity's options seemed limited to evacuation and hope. "What about Godzilla?" he asked. "Can you call him?" "The Orca can attract titans, but we can't control them," Andrews said. "If we summon Godzilla, he might come. Or he might decide the situation doesn't warrant his attention. And even if he does come, we'd have 3 titans fighting in a populated area instead of 2. So you just watch? Let them destroy the city." Andrew's expression was anguished. "We don't have weapons that can stop titans, Mr. Hibino. Our job is to minimize casualties and study their behavior so we can predict future incidents. That's all we can do." Kafka thought about Kokoru, about Reno, about every Defense Force officer who'd ever thrown themselves between a kaiju and innocent people. The idea of standing by while monsters destroyed a city was fundamentally wrong, regardless of what world he was in. "I can help," he said quietly. The room went silent. Everyone turned to stare at him. "Absolutely not," Andrews said immediately. "You're 12 feet tall in kaiju form. Those creatures are over 300 feet. You'd be crushed in seconds." "Maybe. But I'm faster than they are, and I can think strategically. If I can get close to the crystalline one, distracted long enough for Tiamat to escape, the fight moves away from the city." "And if it kills you instead?" Russell demanded. Kafka met his eyes steadily. "Then at least I die trying to save people instead of watching them die from a control room." Colonel Foster studied him with new respect. "Kid's got stones, I'll give him that. But Andrews is right, this is suicide. You don't have the mass, the strength, or the durability to survive direct contact with a Titan." "I have something they don't," Kafka countered. "Intelligence. Titans fight on instinct and territorial aggression, right? They don't strategize, don't use tactics. But I do. I've trained for years to fight kaiju. Just because these are bigger doesn't mean the principles change." Dr. Andrews looked torn, her scientific curiosity warring with her responsibility for Kafka's safety. "Even if I agreed, which I'm not saying I do, we couldn't get you there in time. The nearest transport would take 2 hours. What about that Osprey I saw on the landing pad? The one with the Monarch modifications?" Foster's eyebrows rose. "You want a Halo jump into an active Titan combat zone? In kaiju form. Can you think of a faster way?" The room erupted in arguments. Some people thought Kafka was insane. Others pointed out that doing nothing guaranteed thousands of deaths. Andrews tried to maintain order while clearly calculating odds and outcomes. Finally, she held up a hand for silence. "Mr. Hibino, if you do this, and that's a massive if, you follow our tactical guidance to the letter. You engage only long enough to draw the aggressor away from population centers. The moment we give the extraction order, you disengage. Understood?" Kafka nodded. "And you accept full responsibility for this decision. Monarch is not ordering you to do this. We're facilitating a volunteer operation." "Understood." Andrews looked like she wanted to argue further, but the satellite feed showed another building collapsing as the Titans fought. Time was running out. "Get him to the Osprey," she said to Foster. "And may whatever gods are listening protect us all." As Kafka followed Foster from the auditorium, he heard Dr. Andrews mutter to Russell, "Either he's incredibly brave or incredibly stupid." "In my experience," Russell replied, "it's usually both." The Osprey's engines roared to life as Kafka strapped into the jump harness, his heart hammering against his ribs. Around him, Monarch tactical specialists worked with practiced efficiency, checking equipment, coordinating with ground teams, and studiously avoiding eye contact with the man about to jump into a Titan battlefield. 15 minutes to drop zone, the pilot announced over the intercom. "Weather conditions optimal, but we're getting massive energy fluctuations from the combat area. It's going to be rough." Colonel Foster handed Kafka a comm device small enough to fit in his ear. "This is keyed to your biometric signature. It'll stay functional even when you transform. We'll have eyes on you via satellite and drone coverage, but expect interference. Titan bioradiation plays hell with electronics." Kafka fitted the earpiece, testing it with a quick check. "Loud and clear," Dr. Andrews' voice responded from Castle Bravo. "Mr. Hibino, we've analyzed the crystalline Titan's attack patterns. It's targeting Tiamat's underbelly, the softer tissue between her armored scales. Highly intelligent behavior for a supposedly instinct-driven creature. Meaning it might be smarter than we think. Don't assume it'll ignore you just because you're smaller. Predators often eliminate threats before they become problems." The Osprey banked hard, and through the window, Kafka caught his first glimpse of the battle. Even from miles away, he could see the Titans clashing, Tiamat's serpentine form coiling around the crystalline aggressor, the flash of bioluminescent attacks lighting up the sky. the city's skyline silhouetted against the chaos. 2 million people, he muttered to himself. Just like Tokyo. Just like home. Sir, one of the tactical specialists asked. Nothing. Just remembering why I'm doing this. Foster checked Kafka's harness one final time. Listen, kid, I've seen a lot of brave people do stupid things over the years. This ranks pretty high on that list. But if you're committed, commit fully. No hesitation, no second-guessing. You hit the ground, you transform, you execute the plan. Doubt gets you killed. Noted. And one more thing. Foster's expression softened slightly. In case this goes sideways, what you're doing matters. Most people would run from what you're running toward. That counts for something. Kafka nodded, not trusting his voice. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. Drop zone in 5 minutes. Opening rear hatch. The Osprey's back ramp lowered, and suddenly Kafka was staring at open sky. Wind roared through the cabin, carrying the scent of salt water and something else. Something primal and electric that made the kaiju inside him stir with anticipation. Mr. Ibino, Dr. Andrews said in his ear, latest satellite shows the crystalline titan has Tiamat pinned near the harbor district. Evacuation is 60% complete, but there are still hundreds of thousands of people in the impact zone. You'll be dropping approximately 2 miles from the combat area. Transform in the air. You'll need the enhanced durability for landing. Copy that. Kafka moved to the edge of the ramp, his toes hanging over empty space. Below, the world spread out in patches of city, jungle, and ocean. Somewhere down there, gods were fighting. 30 seconds, the pilot announced. Kafka closed his eyes, feeling the kaiju presence inside him like a coiled spring. In his mind, he heard Captain Ashiro's voice from a training session years ago. Asterisk, fear is natural, Hibino. But duty comes before fear. Always. Asterisk. 10 seconds. He opened his eyes. The battle was visible now. Massive forms colliding with force that sent shockwaves across the water. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2. Mr. Hibino, Dr. Andrews said quietly. Good luck. 1. Go, go, go. Kafka jumped. The fall was silent for exactly 2 seconds before the wind caught him, before gravity asserted its dominance, before his training kicked in, and he spread his arms to stabilize. The ground rushed up with terrifying speed, and Kafka felt the transformation beginning even before he consciously triggered it. His body erupted with power. Armor plating spread across his skin like living metal. Muscle mass expanded exponentially. His senses sharpened to superhuman levels, cataloging wind speed, trajectory, the electromagnetic signatures of the fighting titans below. In 3 seconds, Kafka Hibino became Kaiju number 8, falling toward a war zone at terminal velocity. Fortitude. 45%, he thought, pushing his power higher. The transformation stabilized, and Kafka angled his body toward a stretch of empty beach between the city and the battle. His enhanced vision picked out evacuation routes, civilian clusters still fleeing, military vehicles attempting to establish perimeter. Impact. Kafka hit the sand with force that would have killed a human instantly. His kaiju form absorbed the shock, legs bending, arms extended, head down. He carved a crater 30 feet across and sent up a plume of sand that momentarily obscured the area. Then he rose, 12 feet of armored power, and faced the titans. Up close, the scale was incomprehensible. Tiamat writhed in the shallows, her 400-foot length making her look like a living island. Blood glowing blue and viscous, leaked from dozens of wounds where the crystalline titan spines had pierced her scales. She was losing. The crystalline titan stood over her, its body a nightmare of geometric angles and pulsing red light. It was roughly 300 feet tall, humanoid in basic structure but wrong in every detail. Its head resembled a crown of jagged crystals, and when it roared, the sound carried frequencies that made Kafka's bones ache. Contact established, he reported through the comm. I'm seeing the fight up close. Tiamat's in bad shape. Moving to engage. Negative. Dr. Andrews' voice was sharp with alarm. Hold position. We're detecting a third energy signature approaching from. The ocean erupted for the second time that day. Godzilla rose from the depths like judgment itself, his dorsal plates already glowing with atomic power. Water cascaded off his massive form as he strode toward the beach, each step an earthquake. His eyes, ancient, knowing, terrible, surveyed the scene with the patience of something that had witnessed countless battles across millennia. And then those eyes found Kafka. For a moment that stretched into eternity, the king of the monsters stared at the 12-foot kaiju standing on the beach. Recognition flashed across that prehistoric face. The same creature from Tokyo Bay, the one who'd knelt, the one who'd spoken. Godzilla's expression, if something that alien could be said to have expressions, shifted to what Kafka swore was annoyance. A rumbling sound emerged from the Titan's chest, carrying a clear message that transcended species. Asterisk, not again. Why are you here? Asterisk. Long story, Kafka muttered. The crystalline Titan noticed Godzilla immediately. It released Tiamat and turned, adopting a defensive posture that suggested it recognized the alpha predator. The red light in its crystals intensified, and spines along its back extended like weapons preparing for war. Godzilla's response was almost casual. His dorsal plates pulsed once, a warning, and he roared not the territorial declaration from their first encounter, but something deeper. A command that resonated with primal authority. Asterisk, leave. Now, asterisk. The crystalline Titan didn't leave. Instead, it charged. What followed was violence on a scale Kafka had never imagined. The crystalline Titan moved with shocking speed for something its size, closing the distance to Godzilla in seconds. Its spines lashed out like whips, each one capable of leveling a building. Godzilla caught one in his clawed hand, the crystal shattering against his hide, and retaliated with a tail swipe that sent the aggressor tumbling through 3 city blocks. Buildings exploded into debris. The ground fractured under their combined weight. And Kafka stood frozen, suddenly understanding how utterly insignificant he was in this conflict. Mr. Hibino, Dr. Andrews shouted in his ear. Tiamat is mobile and retreating to open ocean. Your intervention worked. You drew Godzilla's attention to the threat. Now get out of there before your collateral damage. But Kafka's eyes were locked on something else. Among the ruins of a collapsed apartment complex, trapped under a concrete slab, was a school bus. Yellow and distinctive even under the dust. And through his enhanced hearing, he could make out sounds that made his blood run cold. Children. Crying, calling for help. The evacuation had missed them. There are civilians trapped in the impact zone, Kafka reported. Already moving. Southwest sector, collapsed building. I'm going in. Negative. Godzilla and the hostile are about to clash directly over that area. You'll be crushed. Then I'd better work fast. Kafka sprinted toward the ruins, his enhanced speed carrying him across the devastated landscape in bounds. Behind him, Godzilla and the crystalline Titan circled each other, both gathering power for another exchange. He had maybe 30 seconds before they collided directly overhead. The bus was pinned under a concrete slab that probably weighed 50 tons. Inside, Kafka could see faces pressed against the windows, children ranging from maybe 6 to 12 years old, a driver slumped unconscious in his seat, and a teacher trying desperately to keep everyone calm. Fortitude, 70%. Kafka's muscles swelled with power. He wedged his hands under the concrete slab, braced his legs, and lifted. Stone groaned. Rebar snapped. His armor creaked under the strain, but the slab shifted. 1 inch, then 2, then enough for the bus doors to open. Out, he shouted in Vietnamese, hoping his kaiju form's vocal distortion didn't make him incomprehensible. Out now. The teacher understood. She started pushing children through the doors, and they ran, some crying, some silent with shock, all of them moving away from the monster helping them and toward the evacuation route. Above, Godzilla's dorsal plates reached critical luminosity. Kafka felt the temperature spike, felt the atomic energy building to catastrophic levels. He had maybe 5 seconds before Godzilla unleashed his breath weapon. The last child cleared the bus. Kafka released the slab and dove away just as Godzilla fired. The atomic breath was blue fire given form, a concentrated beam of nuclear fury that struck the crystalline titan dead center. The creature shrieked, a sound like breaking glass amplified 1,000 times, and its crystalline body began to crack. Fissures spread across its torso as Godzilla's breath literally melted it from the inside out. The beam passed directly over where Kafka had been standing 2 seconds earlier. He rolled to his feet, scanning for the evacuees. They were clear, running toward military vehicles in the distance. Safe. The mission was. Pain exploded across his back. Kafka was thrown forward by a massive impact, his vision whiting out. When he could see again, he was 30 feet from where he'd been standing, and the crystalline titan was collapsing directly toward him. The creature was dying, its body fracturing under Godzilla's assault, but in death it was still 300 feet of falling mass. Kafka tried to move, but his legs wouldn't respond. The impact had damaged something, slowed his kaiju form's healing. The shadow of the falling titan engulfed him. This is it, Kafka thought with strange clarity. Asterisk came to a new world and lasted less than 2 days. Sorry, everyone asterisk. Then something grabbed him. Godzilla's hand, each finger larger than Kafka's entire body, snatched him off the ground like a child picking up a toy. The king of the monsters lifted Kafka clear of the impact zone just as the crystalline titan crashed into the beach, its body shattering into countless fragments of slowly dimming crystal. For the second time, Kafka found himself being studied by Godzilla's ancient eyes. But this time, held in the titan's grip 30 feet off the ground, there was nowhere to run. Godzilla rumbled, a sound that vibrated through Kafka's entire body. Not angry, not threatening, almost curious. The titan's eyes narrowed as if trying to understand what this tiny creature was doing in a battle between gods. Then, with surprising gentleness, Godzilla set Kafka down on the beach. The titan turned without another glance and began his walk back to the ocean. His work was done. The threat was eliminated. The Alpha had restored order. Kafka collapsed to his knees, his kaiju form trembling with exhaustion and adrenaline. Through the comm, he could hear Dr. Andrews calling his name repeatedly. "I'm alive," he managed. Mission accomplished. Tiamat's clear, the hostile is down, and the evacuees are safe. And Godzilla? Andrews asked carefully. Kafka watched the titan's massive form wade into the Pacific, watched those dorsal plates slowly dim from blue to their ambient glow, watched the king of the monsters disappear beneath the waves as if nothing extraordinary had happened. "He saved me," Kafka said quietly. "Twice now he's spared my life. I don't know why, but I think he's trying to tell me something." What? Kafka thought about the children he'd saved, about the choice to run toward danger instead of away from it, about standing on a battlefield between gods and choosing to matter anyway. "That size isn't everything," he said finally. "That even something small can make a difference. Maybe that's why he let me live. Because I reminded him that power isn't just about being the biggest monster in the room." The extraction osprey appeared overhead, lowering cables. As Kafka grabbed hold and felt himself being lifted from ruins, he looked back at the battlefield one last time. Somewhere in the distance, Godzilla's roar echoed across the ocean, not a challenge or a warning, but an acknowledgement. The king of the monsters had noticed him. Now Kafka just had to figure out what to do with that terrifying honor. The aftermath of the Vietnam incident made Kafka an overnight sensation and a global controversy. News footage showed everything. His jump from the Osprey, his transformation midair, his desperate sprint to save the trapped school bus while titans battled overhead. Social media exploded with speculation. Some called him a hero. Others called him a reckless vigilante. Conspiracy theorists claimed he was a government weapon. Religious groups declared him a sign of the apocalypse. And Apex Cybernetics issued a public statement demanding that Monarch release all information regarding the unregistered Titan-human hybrid for national security review. "This is exactly what we didn't need," Dr. Andrews muttered, watching the news coverage from Castle Bravo's command center. Kafka sat beside her, back in human form, wrapped in a thermal blanket despite not actually being cold. The doctor said it was shock, his body processing the trauma of nearly being crushed by a dying Titan. On screen, Maya Hampton was giving an interview to a major news network. Can't simply allow unvetted entities with Titan-level capabilities to operate without oversight. The creature known as Kaiju number 8 demonstrated both human intelligence and Titan physiology. That combination represents an unprecedented security risk that Monarch is woefully unprepared to manage. She's not wrong about the security risk, Mark Russell said grimly. Every intelligence agency on the planet is now trying to figure out where you came from and how to replicate you. We've already intercepted attempts to hack our database. Kafka pulled the blanket tighter. I was just trying to save those kids. We know, Andrews said more gently. And those 23 children are alive because of you. Their families are calling you a guardian angel. But Hampton and Apex see something different. They see a weapon they don't control. Colonel Foster entered the command center, his expression grave. We've got a problem. The UN Security Council has called an emergency session to discuss the Hibino situation. They're demanding Monarch turn over all research data and submit Kafka for international review. Absolutely not, Andrews said immediately. He's not a specimen to be studied or a threat to be contained. He's a person under Monarch protection. Try explaining that to 15 countries who just watched him fight alongside Godzilla on live television. Foster pulled up a global threat assessment map. We're also seeing increased Titan activity worldwide. Scylla has emerged from the Arctic. Behemoth is moving south through Brazil. It's like your intervention triggered something. Dr. Chun, Monarch's mythology and linguistics expert, spoke up from her workstation. It's not coincidence. The Titans operate on a hierarchical system with Godzilla at the apex. When he acknowledged Kafka twice now, he essentially vouched for him in their social structure. Other Titans are taking notice. They're trying to understand what you are. Wonderful, Kafka said flatly. So I've got both humans and Titans interested in me now. Can this get any worse? An alarm shrieked across the command center. Hostile aircraft approaching from the east, a technician announced. Multiple signatures, military grade, not responding to identification requests. ETA 4 minutes. Andrews and Foster exchanged looks. Apex, they said simultaneously. They can't attack a Monarch facility, Russell protested. That's an act of war. Not if they claim they're conducting a legally sanctioned operation to secure a dangerous entity, Foster countered. Already moving toward the armory. Hampton's been building political capital for months. If she convinced the right people that Kafka represents a clear and present danger, then she can justify a raid under emergency protocols, Andrews finished. She turned to Kafka. We need to evacuate you. Now, if Apex captures you, they'll dissect you to understand how your transformation works. Kafka stood, the blanket falling away. Where would I even go? You said it yourself. Every government wants answers. Running just delays the inevitable. Then we delay, Andrews said firmly. Because the alternative is letting corporations weaponize your biology. Foster, prep the submarine. We'll take him to Skull Island. Apex can't reach him there. Skull Island? Kafka asked. Kong's territory, Chen explained. Surrounded by perpetual storms that destroy any aircraft that tries to enter. It's the most isolated place on Earth. If we can get you there. The building shook, not from an explosion, but from something landing on the roof with enough force to crack the reinforced concrete. Alarms erupted across every station as sensors detected a massive energy signature directly above them. Titan signature, the technician shouted. But it's not in the database. It's oh my God. The ceiling exploded inward. A creature descended through the hole, smaller than the Titans Kafka had seen before, maybe 40 feet tall, but built like a nightmare made flesh. Its body was covered in black, chitinous armor etched with glowing red veins. Multiple eyes dotted its angular head, and its arms ended in wickedly curved talons that looked capable of rending steel. It landed in the command center with impossible grace, and when it spoke, Kafka's blood ran cold. Because it spoke in Japanese. Kafka Hibino, the creature said, its voice distorted but unmistakably intelligent. The Defense Force has been searching for you. Imagine my surprise when I discovered you'd fled to another dimension entirely. Kafka stared, his mind refusing to process what he was seeing. No, that's impossible. Kaiju don't talk. They don't. Don't what? Think. Plan? Follow their prey across dimensional barriers. The creature's multiple eyes fixed on Kafka with predatory focus. I am Kaiju number 9, and I have been hunting you for a very long time, Hibino. Did you really think that energy rift was an accident? The implications hit Kafka like a physical blow. The dimensional tear, his arrival in the Monsterverse. It hadn't been random. He'd been followed. Everyone get out, Andrews shouted, but number 9 moved with blinding speed. Its tail whipped out, smashing through consoles and creating a barrier between the Monarch personnel and the exits. Stay, number 9 commanded. I want witnesses. I want this new world to understand what's coming. Kafka, transform. Show these people what you really are. Let's see if this universe made you stronger or just gave you delusions of adequacy. Kafka's Kaiju presence surged inside him, responding to the direct threat. But his human mind was racing. Number 9 was a sentient Kaiju from his world, one of the most dangerous ever recorded. Intelligent, adaptable, capable of mimicking abilities and tactics. The Defense Force had been hunting it for months. And now it was here, in a world unprepared for something that could think like a human and fight like a titan. Why? Kafka asked, stalling for time as Monarch security teams mobilized outside. Why follow me across dimensions? Why risk coming here? Number 9's chitinous armor rippled with what might have been amusement. Because this world is perfect, Hibino. Look at it, titans that operate on instinct, humans with primitive weapons, and an entire ecosystem ready to be conquered. I watched your battle with that crystalline creature. I studied how Godzilla fights. Powerful, yes, but predictable, instinctive. The creature spread its arms, talons gleaming. I am neither. I think. I adapt. I evolve. And with the resources of this dimension, I can become something your Defense Force never imagined. A titan with human intelligence. An alpha predator with no natural ceiling to its growth. You'll never control Godzilla, Dr. Andrews said, her voice steady despite the terror Kafka could see in her eyes. He's maintained balance for millions of years. One intelligent Kaiju won't change that. No, number 9 agreed. But imagine what happens when I start changing others. When I teach Titans to hunt strategically, to coordinate, to target humanity's weaknesses instead of fighting mindlessly. Your Monarch organization barely survives random Titan awakenings. How will you fare against organized attacks? The creature's gaze returned to Kafka. Transform, Hibino. Fight me here, in front of your new friends. Show them that you're not their guardian angel. You're the harbinger of their extinction. Because where I go, others will follow. The dimensional rift is still open, still calling to Kaiju that dream of new worlds to consume. Kafka felt the weight of everyone's stares. He could transform, could fight number 9 inside the facility and risk everyone's lives. Or he could refuse and prove he was the threat Hampton claimed, unable to protect the people around him. Outside, he said quietly. You want to fight? Fine. But not here. Not with innocent people in the crossfire. Number 9 tilted its head, considering. Honorable. Foolish, but honorable. Very well, Hibino. Let's take this somewhere more appropriate. The creature leaped back through the hole in the ceiling. Kafka heard it land on the roof, heard its claws scraping against metal as it waited. Don't do this, Andrews pleaded. We can contain it, study it, find a weakness. You can't, Kafka interrupted. Number 9 adapts. Every technique you use, it learns and counters. The Defense Force threw everything at it, fortitude users, weapons, tactics, and it evolved past all of them. The only reason we survived was because it couldn't be everywhere at once. He moved toward the hole, then paused. Dr. Andrews, you asked me earlier what role I wanted to play in this world. I think I just found my answer. I'm the bridge between dimensions, which means I'm also responsible for what crosses that bridge. Kafka. If I don't stop it here, number 9 will do exactly what it promised. It'll turn the Titans into weapons, and this world will burn. I've seen what organized Kaiju can do. I won't let that happen here. He jumped through the ceiling before anyone could stop him. The roof of Castle Bravo was a maze of satellite dishes, sensor arrays, and communications equipment. Number 9 stood in the center, its black armor gleaming in the sunlight, its multiple eyes tracking Kafka's emergence. Finally, the creature said, "No more running. No more hiding. Just you, me, and the truth you've been avoiding since you bonded with that pathetic parasite." Kafka's transformation rippled across his body. Armor spread, muscles swelled, senses sharpened. In 3 seconds, Kaiju number 8 stood face to face with Kaiju number 9. "And what truth is that?" Kafka asked, his fortitude climbing to 60%. Number 9's chitinous plates shifted, reconfiguring into a battle stance. "That we're the same, Hibino. Both of us are humans who became monsters. The only difference is that I embraced what I am. I stopped pretending to be a hero and accepted my nature as an apex predator." "Wrong," Kafka said, his clawed hands clenching into fists. "The difference is that I still remember what it means to be human, and that makes all the difference." Number 9 laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Then let's test that theory. Show me this humanity you cling to so desperately. Show me if it's armor or just a comfortable lie you tell yourself." The creature lunged, and Kafka met the charge head-on. Their collision shook the entire facility. Claw met claw, armor scraped against armor, and the battle for two worlds began in earnest. Below, Dr. Andrews watched through external cameras, her hand hovering over the emergency beacon that could summon Godzilla. But something stopped her. Because on that roof, Kafka Hibino wasn't fighting like a monster. He was fighting like a soldier, tactical, controlled, protecting the facility even while defending himself. Fighting like someone who still believed that being human meant something. "May whatever gods exist help him," she whispered. "Because he's fighting for all of us now." The battle on Castle Bravo's roof was brutality measured in fractions of seconds. Number 9 fought with a precision that only centuries of human military evolution could produce, filtered through a Kaiju's raw power. Every strike targeted joints, weak points, areas where Kafka's armor was thinnest. The creature had studied him, probably since the moment he'd arrived in this dimension, and it showed in every calculated attack. Kafka parried a claw strike aimed at his throat, countered with a palm thrust that sent number 9 sliding backward across the roof. Satellite dishes crumpled under the creature's mass. His fortitude spiked to 75%, power flooding his limbs. "Not bad," number 9 said, its voice carrying a mocking approval. "You've improved since our last encounter. This dimension is making you stronger. Or perhaps desperation is finally teaching you to fight like you mean it." Kafka didn't waste breath on a response. He closed the distance with enhanced speed, driving his armored knee into number 9's thorax. The impact would have shattered concrete, but number 9's chitinous plating absorbed it and immediately began to shift, hardening, adapting, evolving in real time. "There it is," Kafka muttered. The reason number 9 was so dangerous, adaptive evolution. Every attack that landed taught it how to defend better. Every technique used became less effective with each repetition. Number 9's tail whipped around, aiming for Kafka's legs. He jumped, but the creature anticipated the move. Its secondary arms, hidden until now, shot out and grabbed Kafka midair, slamming him down onto the roof hard enough to crack the reinforced structure. Pain exploded through Kafka's back. His vision blurred, and for a moment he was back in training, getting demolished by Captain Ishiro because he telegraphed his moves. "You fight like you're apologizing for your power, Hibino," her voice echoed in his memory. Asterisk, stop holding back. Stop being afraid of what you might do and focus on what you must do. Asterisk. Kafka's eyes snapped into focus just as number 9's claws descended toward his chest. He rolled, the talons missing by inches and punching through the roof where his heart had been. Then he grabbed number 9's extended arm and pulled, using the creature's own momentum against it. Number 9 went flying, tumbling across the roof in an ungainly heap. It recovered instantly, but Kafka saw something in its multiple eyes: surprise, maybe even respect. Better, number 9 acknowledged, rising to its full 40-foot height. But still insufficient. You're fighting to survive, Hibino. I'm fighting to win. There's a difference. The creature's armor rippled, and suddenly red energy, similar to the crystalline titan's attacks, crackled along its claws. Did you think I've been idle since arriving? I've been studying this world's titans, absorbing their techniques, integrating their strengths. That crystalline creature you helped kill? I consumed its remains. Its power is mine now. Number 9 slashed the air, and crimson energy blades shot toward Kafka. He dodged the first two, but the third caught his shoulder, slicing through armor and drawing glowing blue blood. The pain was immediate and intense, not just a physical wound, but something that burned with residual titan energy. What's wrong? Number 9 taunted. Realize you're outmatched? That your little heroics in Vietnam meant nothing? You saved some children, congratulations. Meanwhile, I've been preparing to conquer an entire dimension. Kafka's fortitude climbed to 85%. His wound began to heal, the kaiju regeneration working overtime. You talk too much, he said, his distorted voice carrying a coldness that surprised even him. All this monologuing about conquest and evolution. You sound like every B-movie villain I've ever seen. For something that claims to be so evolved, you're pretty predictable. Number 9's eyes narrowed. Predictable. Yeah, you followed me here because you're running. The defense force was closing in on you back home, so you fled to a dimension where you thought you'd have an advantage. But here's the thing about running. It just means you're not as strong as you pretend to be. The effect was immediate. Number 9's armor flared with anger, its controlled demeanor cracking. I am stronger than anything in your pathetic world. I am evolution incarnate. I am. Kafka moved. 90% fortitude. Full power, no holding back. He closed the gap between them in a blur, his fist slamming into number 9's center mass, with every ounce of strength his kaiju form could generate. The shockwave from the impact shattered every window in the facility and sent number 9 crashing through the roof, down through 3 floors of Castle Bravo, and into the command center below. Kafka followed, dropping through the hole his attack had created. Around him, Monarch personnel scattered, diving for cover as 12 feet of armored kaiju landed in a combat crouch. Number 9 was already rising, its chitinous plates cracked, but healing. Blue ichor, copied from Kafka's own regenerative fluids, leaked from its wounds. You're right, the creature admitted, its voice strained. I was running. The defense force had me cornered, had developed weapons specifically to counter my abilities. So I found the dimensional rift, and I escaped. It laughed, the sound bitter and broken. But I'm not running anymore, Hibino. I'm conquering. And when others follow me through, and they will, this world will learn what true apex predators look like. Others. Dr. Andrews demanded from behind an overturned console. How many kaiju are coming through? Enough, number 9 said. The rift is stable now. Every kaiju that's ever dreamed of unlimited hunting grounds, of a world without the defense force, will eventually find it. And they'll come. Some for conquest, some for survival, but they'll all come eventually. Kafka felt the weight of that revelation settle over him like a shroud. He'd thought his arrival was an accident, a freak occurrence. But if number 9 was telling the truth, he was just the first wave. His world's kaiju crisis was about to become the Monsterverse nightmare. Then I'll stop them, Kafka said simply. All of them, if I have to. Starting with you. Noble. Stupid, but noble. Number 9's armor began to glow with accumulated energy, a combination of its own power and the titan abilities it had absorbed. Let me show you what happens to heroes in my world, Hibino. Let me show you what evolution really means. The creature's form began to shift, growing larger, more monstrous. its humanoid shape distorted into something that looked like a fusion of every kaiju it had ever consumed: multiple limbs, redundant organs, adaptive armor that shifted configurations moment to moment. In 30 seconds, Number 9 grew from 40 feet to nearly 60, its mass expanding to fill the destroyed command center. It was becoming a true titan, powered by stolen abilities and unrestrained evolution. Kafka realized with cold clarity that he was losing. His 12-foot form, even at full fortitude, couldn't match this. He needed an edge, needed something that Number 9 hadn't accounted for. He needed what had saved him in Vietnam. "Dr. Andrews," Kafka said quietly into his comm, "can you activate the Orca? The bioacoustic device? Kafka, that attracts titans. If you bring more creatures here. Trust me, please." A pause that felt eternal. Then, activating Orca. God help us all. The sound that filled Castle Bravo was beyond human hearing, a frequency that resonated with Titan biology across every spectrum. It was a call, a challenge, a summons to anything within 100 miles that operated on Titan frequencies. And Kafka was betting that anything included Godzilla. Number 9 realized what he'd done immediately. No, you're calling the Alpha? You idiot, he'll kill us both. Maybe, Kafka admitted. But at least I'll die defending this world instead of trying to conquer it. Can you say the same? The ocean visible through Castle Bravo's shattered walls began to glow blue. Number 9's multiple eyes widened with something Kafka had never seen in the creature before: genuine fear. You've doomed yourself, Hibino. Doomed everyone here. Godzilla doesn't distinguish between threats. He eliminates anything that challenges his authority. Then let's find out if he considers me a threat, Kafka said, or an ally. Godzilla erupted from the Pacific like a rising continent. His dorsal plates blazed with atomic fury, and his roar shook the entire facility to its foundations. He was angry. The Orca's call had been unexpected, unwelcome, a disruption to whatever ancient business occupied him. His eyes swept across Castle Bravo, cataloging threats. He saw the destroyed facility. He saw Number 9, a creature that radiated wrong frequencies, stolen powers, unnatural evolution. And he saw Kafka, the small kaiju who'd saved children, who'd fought beside him, who'd twice shown respect when every instinct screamed to flee. Godzilla's decision took less than 3 seconds. He fired his atomic breath directly at Number 9. The creature shrieked and dove away, but the blue fire caught its left side, searing through armor that had withstood everything Kafka could throw. Number 9 burst through the facility's eastern wall and ran, its evolutionary confidence shattered by the reality of facing a true alpha predator. Godzilla pursued with the patient inevitability of a natural disaster. Each step brought him closer to the fleeing kaiju, and his eyes never wavered from his target. Kafka, forgotten in the alpha's focus, watched them go. His fortitude dropped to manageable levels as the immediate danger passed. Around him, Monarch personnel slowly emerged from cover, staring at the destruction with shell-shocked expressions. "Did that just happen?" Mark Russell asked, his voice hollow. "Did Godzilla just choose sides?" Dr. Andrews looked at Kafka, her scientific mind clearly racing through implications. He recognized friend from foe, protected what he considered part of his territory's natural order. "Mr. Hibino, I think Godzilla just declared you're under his protection." Or, Colonel Foster added grimly, he decided that Number 9 was a bigger threat and will come back for Kafka later. A distant explosion lit up the horizon, Godzilla's atomic breath finding its mark again. They could hear Number 9 screams even from miles away, could feel the vibrations of Titan combat through the damaged facility structure. Either way, Kafka said quietly, watching the battle rage in the distance, Number 9 was right about one thing. Others will come through the rift. My world's kaiju are going to find this dimension eventually. And when they do... He trailed off, but everyone understood. The Monsterverse had barely survived its own titans. Adding an entire dimension's worth of intelligent, adaptable kaiju to the mix? We need to close that rift, Dr. Andrews said with finality. Before the invasion Number 9 predicted becomes reality. Dr. Chun, coordinate with quantum physics. I want every researcher we have analyzing the energy signature from Kafka's arrival. If there's a way to seal the dimensional barrier. There might be, Chen interrupted, pulling up data on her cracked tablet. But it would require accessing the rift from both sides simultaneously. Someone would need to go back to Kafka's world and activate a seal from there while we activate one here. All eyes turned to Kafka. You're saying I need to go home, he said slowly. But the only way to protect this world is to leave it. I'm saying, Chen corrected gently, that you might be the only thing that can travel between dimensions safely, and that this world needs protection from threats you understand better than anyone. Kafka thought about Captain Ishiro, about Kokaru and Reno, about the life he'd left behind. And he thought about Dr. Andrews, about those children in Vietnam, about Godzilla's ancient eyes studying him with something approaching respect. 2 worlds, 2 responsibilities, and apparently only one person who could bridge the gap between them. First, he said, we deal with number 9. Make sure Godzilla finishes what he started. Then we talk about closing rifts and dimensional barriers, and me playing Cosmic Border Patrol. Another explosion lit the sky. Godzilla's roar followed, triumphant and absolute. Kafka allowed himself a small smile. Besides, something tells me the king of the monsters has this particular problem under control. The battle between Godzilla and Kaiju number 9 lasted 17 minutes and covered 12 miles of Pacific coastline. When it was over, number 9's body lay in pieces across a devastated beach, its adaptive armor finally overcome by concentrated atomic fire and 390 feet of ancient fury. Kafka watched from a Monarch helicopter as Godzilla surveyed his handiwork with the satisfaction of a predator who'd eliminated a territorial challenger. The king of the monster's dorsal plates dimmed from combat-ready blue to their ambient glow, and he turned toward the ocean, but not before casting one final glance toward the helicopter. Even from a mile away, Kafka felt the weight of that gaze. A warning maybe, or an acknowledgement. With Godzilla, it was impossible to tell. Target neutralized, Colonel Foster reported from the co-pilot seat. Biosigns on number 9 are flatlined. Whatever that thing was, it's not coming back from that level of radiation exposure. Don't be so sure, Kafka said quietly. Number 9's whole ability was adaptation and regeneration. If even a single cell survived. Then we make sure nothing survives, Foster interrupted. I'm calling in an orbital strike. We'll glass the entire area, sterilize it down to the bedrock. Dr. Andrews, listening via comm from Castle Bravo, interjected. Denied, Colonel. If we use weapons that powerful, we risk attracting more Titan attention. The last thing we need is every creature within 1,000 miles investigating an orbital bombardment. So what do you suggest? We just hope Godzilla's atomic breath was enough. I suggest, a new voice said, that we collect samples before destroying evidence of an entirely new Titan classification. Kafka turned to see Dr. Ling had joined them via video link, her tablet showing detailed scans of number 9's remains. That creature represented a fundamental deviation from known Titan biology, intelligence, speech, adaptive evolution on a cellular level. If we can understand how it functions, we might be able to predict and counter future dimensional incursions. Or, Kafka said darkly, you'll end up creating the very weapons Apex wants. Number 9's power came from consuming other kaiju and integrating their abilities. You really want to experiment with that in a laboratory? Ling's expression was conflicted. The scientist in her clearly wanted to study the unprecedented specimen. But Kafka saw the moment reason won over curiosity. You're right. The risk outweighs the potential knowledge. Recommend complete incineration of all biological material. Agreed, Andrews said. Foster, coordinate with the JSDF. I want that beach sanitized, napalm, thermite, whatever it takes. If number 9 could regenerate from a single cell, we can't take chances. As the helicopter banked toward Castle Bravo, Kafka stared at number 9's corpse. The creature had been terrifying, intelligent, and powerful. But in the end, it had made the same mistake every villain made. It underestimated the defenders. It underestimated Godzilla. And it underestimated the fact that Kafka Hibino, despite everything, still chose to be a hero. Castle Bravo's reconstruction was already underway when they landed. Emergency crews worked to seal the breach sections, engineers assessed structural damage, and Monarch personnel cataloged destroyed equipment with grim efficiency. The facility had survived Titan attacks before. It would survive this one too. Dr. Andrews met Kafka on the landing pad, her expression grave. "We need to talk. Privately." They retreated to her office, one of the few rooms that had escaped major damage. Once inside, Andrews activated a signal jammer and locked the door. Whatever she wanted to discuss, she didn't want anyone eavesdropping. The dimensional rift, she began without preamble. Dr. Chen's analysis confirms it's still active. Weakened, but stable. And she's detected something else, energy signatures on the other side. Multiple signatures. Kafka's stomach dropped. "More kaiju." "We think so. The readings are inconsistent with our Titans. They match the energy profile you and number 9 exhibited. Smaller, more concentrated, more organized." Andrews pulled up a holographic display showing the rift's location, somewhere in the Pacific, approximately 200 miles from Tokyo. They haven't crossed over yet, but Dr. Chen estimates we have maybe 72 hours before the barrier weakens enough to allow passage. 3 days, Kafka said numbly. 3 days to close a dimensional rift or face an invasion from my world kaiju. That's the situation, yes. Andrews studied him carefully. Which brings me to the hard question, Mr. Hibino. The method Dr. Chen proposed, closing the rift from both sides simultaneously, requires someone to cross back to your dimension, locate the other side of the tear, and activate a quantum seal while we do the same here. And I'm the only one who's proven they can survive dimensional travel, Kafka finished. You are. And more importantly, you know that world. You know how to navigate it, how to survive kaiju encounters, how to work with the defense force if necessary. Andrews leaned forward, her voice earnest. I'm not going to lie to you. This is dangerous. There's no guarantee the crossing won't kill you. No guarantee you'll be able to return once the rift is sealed. You could be trapped there permanently. Kafka thought about that. Trapped in his home dimension, back with the defense force, with Captain Ishiro and his friends. A week ago, that would have been his desperate wish. But now he'd seen what happened when dimensions collided. He'd witnessed the damage that even one intelligent kaiju could cause. And he'd felt the terrible responsibility of being the bridge between worlds. If I go back and seal the rift from that side, he said slowly, what happens to the kaiju already on your side of the barrier? What happens to me? The kaiju, meaning you, would remain in whichever dimension you're in when the seal activates. The barrier would become impermeable, preventing any future crossings. As for what happens to you specifically, Andrews hesitated. That depends on whether you want to stay in your home world or return here before we activate the seal. You're asking me to choose which dimension to call home. I'm asking you to save both dimensions and then decide where you belong. The weight of that decision pressed down on Kafka like a physical force. His old life versus his new one. Familiar faces and duty versus strange allies and new responsibilities. The defense force versus Monarch. A world of organized kaiju response versus a world still learning to coexist with Titans. How long do I have to decide? He asked. The crossing needs to happen within 24 hours to ensure the timing is right. After that, the calculations become too unpredictable. Andrew's expression softened. Kafka, I won't pretend to understand what you're going through. Being torn between worlds is something most people never experience. But I will say this, in the short time you've been here, you've saved lives, fought alongside Godzilla, and proven that the gap between human and Titan doesn't have to be insurmountable. She pulled up footage from the Vietnam incident, Kafka lifting the concrete slab, children fleeing to safety, his desperate sprint to get them clear before the Titans clashed overhead. That, Andrews said, pointing at the screen, is what makes you valuable. Not your transformation ability, not your combat power, but your choice to use that power to protect others. Whichever world you choose, that quality will matter. A knock at the door interrupted them. Mark Russell entered, his expression urgent. "Doctor, we've got a situation. Apex Cybernetics just filed an injunction with the International Tribunal claiming Monarch is harboring dangerous entities without proper oversight. They're demanding immediate access to our facilities and all research data related to Titan-human hybrids." "Of course they are," Andrews said bitterly. Maya Hampton saw the battle footage. She knows Number 9 represented a new paradigm. Intelligent Kaiju with adaptive abilities. She'll want to replicate it. "It gets worse," Russell continued. "They've also filed for custody of Kafka, claiming he represents a threat to global security that requires containment by a more qualified organization. The hearing is scheduled for 48 hours from now." Kafka stood abruptly. "They can't just claim ownership of a person. They can if they convince enough governments that you're not a person. You're a Titan that happens to look human sometimes." Russell's frustration was evident. Hampton's argument is that your transformation ability proves you're fundamentally non-human, therefore not protected by human rights laws. "That's insane. That's politics," Andrews said grimly. "And Apex has been building political capital for years. They'll argue that the threat of dimensional invasion justifies extraordinary measures. That studying you is necessary for humanity's survival." Kafka felt the familiar surge of powerlessness, the same feeling he'd experienced in his world when bureaucrats made decisions that affected Kaiju response without understanding the reality of combat. "So what do we do?" Andrews and Russell exchanged glances. Then Andrews said something Kafka didn't expect. "We send you through the rift before Apex can touch you. Tonight, we tell the tribunal you volunteered to close the dimensional barrier from the other side, which is technically true. By the time the hearing happens, you'll be beyond their jurisdiction." "And if I can't get back?" Kafka asked. "Then you've saved both dimensions and escaped being vivisected by corporate scientists. Not the worst outcome, considering the alternatives." Kafka realized she was right. If Apex got their hands on him, they'd never let him go. They'd study him, replicate his abilities if possible, weaponize everything they learned. At least in his home dimension, the Defense Force treated Kaiju users as soldiers, not lab specimens. "All right," he said, decision crystallizing. "I'll go through the rift tonight, seal it from the other side, and trust that the universe will sort out where I'm supposed to end up." "There's one more thing," Dr. Chen said, entering the office with a sleek metallic device the size of a briefcase. "This is the quantum seal. Once you're on the other side, you'll need to place it at the exact center of the rift's energy signature. When we activate our seal simultaneously, the dimensional barrier should collapse and reform, cutting off all passage permanently." She opened the case, revealing a device that looked like something from a science fiction movie. Glowing conduits, crystalline matrices, and a central core that pulsed with soft blue light. "It's calibrated to your biosignature. Once activated, it will bond to your Kaiju form's energy output and use that to power the sealing process." "Use my energy? For how long?" "Approximately 90 seconds. During that time, you won't be able to transform or use your abilities. You'll be completely vulnerable." Kafka absorbed that information. 90 seconds in the middle of a dimensional rift, powerless, while Kaiju from both dimensions potentially converged on his location. "No pressure, then. We'll provide covering fire from this side for as long as possible," Colonel Foster said, having joined the impromptu strategy session. "But once the seal activates, you're on your own." "Story of my life," Kafka muttered. Dr. Andrews placed a hand on his shoulder. "Kafka, you don't have to do this. We can find another way, fight the legal battle, relocate you to a secure facility, and let more Kaiju pour through while we're arguing in court?" "No." Kafka met her eyes steadily. "Number 9 said others would follow, and I believe him. Every hour that rift stays open is an invitation for something worse to cross over. If I can close it, I will." He thought about Godzilla, about those ancient eyes that had judged him twice and found him worthy of mercy, about the children in Vietnam who lived because he'd chosen to act instead of hide, about Captain Ishiro's teachings that duty came before fear. Besides, he added with a slight smile, I'm a Defense Force officer. Impossible missions are kind of our specialty. The preparations took 6 hours. Dr. Chen programmed the quantum seal with Kafka's exact biosignature. Colonel Foster assembled a tactical team to provide escort to the rift location. Mark Russell coordinated with satellite monitoring to track any Kaiju activity that might interfere with the operation. And Dr. Andrews pulled Kafka aside one final time before departure. If you make it back, she said quietly, there will be a place for you here at Monarch. Not as a specimen or a weapon, but as a consultant. Someone who understands both dimensions and can help us prepare for whatever comes next. And if I don't make it back, then we'll tell people the truth, that Kafka Hibino saved 2 worlds and asked for nothing in return except the chance to do what was right. She extended her hand. It's been an honor, Mr. Hibino, even if it was only for a few days. Kafka shook her hand, feeling the weight of finality in the gesture. The honor was mine, Dr. Andrews. Take care of this world. It's pretty amazing, even with the giant monsters. Especially with the giant monsters, she corrected with a sad smile. As Kafka boarded the transport submarine that would take him to the rift's location, he looked back at Castle Bravo one last time. The facility was already rebuilding, already preparing for whatever came next. That was humanity's greatest strength, the ability to adapt, to survive, to keep fighting no matter how impossible the odds. He just hoped that strength would be enough for what was coming. Because somewhere in the distance, Godzilla's roar echoed across the Pacific, and Kafka couldn't tell if it was a farewell or a warning. The submarine descended through dark waters, its navigation lights barely penetrating the murky depths. Kafka sat in the passenger compartment, the quantum seal device strapped securely to his back, his mind cycling through every possible scenario that might await him on the other side of the dimensional rift. Approaching coordinates, the pilot announced. Energy readings are spiking. Whatever's generating that rift, it's getting stronger. Through the submarine's reinforced viewports, Kafka could see it, a tear in reality itself, suspended in the water like a wound in the fabric of space. It pulsed with the same purple-green light he remembered from his arrival, and around it, the ocean seemed to distort, waves moving in impossible directions, physics breaking down at the edges. Radiation levels are elevated, but within acceptable parameters. Dr. Chen's voice crackled through the comm system. Kafka, once you pass through, we'll lose contact. The dimensional barrier blocks all conventional communications. You'll be completely on your own until the seal activates. Understood, Kafka said, checking his gear one final time. The quantum seal, a waterproof container with emergency supplies, and a combat knife that seemed absurdly inadequate given what he might face. How will I know when to activate my side of the seal? The device will alert you automatically when it detects our activation sequence. You'll have approximately 10 seconds to confirm and initiate. After that, the sealing process is irreversible. 10 seconds to decide which side of the dimensional barrier he wanted to be on when it's sealed. 10 seconds to choose between his old life and his new one. Castle Bravo, this is Kafka. Beginning approach to the rift. Dr. Andrews' voice replaced Chen's. Good luck, Mr. Hibino. And remember, no matter which world you end up in, you've already proven you're a hero in both. The submarine maneuvered closer to the rift, and Kafka felt a familiar sensation building. The same pulling, tearing feeling he'd experienced during his original crossing. His Kaiju presence stirred inside him, recognizing the energy's signature, preparing for transformation whether he willed it or not. I'm going to swim the rest of the way, Kafka said, moving toward the airlock. The submarine shouldn't get any closer. The energy fluctuations might damage your systems. Negative, Colonel Foster responded. We're under orders to provide support until... Colonel, if this submarine gets caught in the rift when it destabilizes, everyone aboard dies. I'm going alone. That's final. A pause. Then, understood. Godspeed, Kafka. The airlock cycled, and Kafka plunged into the Pacific. The water was cold, almost freezing, but his enhanced physiology barely noticed. He swam toward the rift with powerful strokes, each movement bringing him closer to that impossible tear in reality. The closer he got, the stranger things became. Fish swam backward. Bubbles fell instead of rising. Light bent at angles that hurt to look at. And through the rift itself, Kafka could see fragmentary images. His Tokyo, his world, the familiar skyline that he'd left behind only days ago. He reached out and touched the rift's edge. Reality screamed. The sensation was indescribable, being pulled apart and compressed simultaneously, existing in two places at once. Time losing all meaning as past and future collapsed into a single eternal moment. Kafka felt his consciousness stretching across dimensions, felt his kaiju form trying to emerge as a defense mechanism, felt the quantum seal on his back activating in response to the energy surge. And then he was through. Kafka emerged in the waters of Tokyo Bay, his Tokyo Bay, gasping and disoriented. The sky above was gray with late afternoon clouds, and the familiar sounds of the city assault his ears after days of the Monsterverse different acoustic signature. He swam toward the nearest dock, hauled himself onto the concrete, and lay there for a moment, just breathing. He was home. Actually, genuinely home. Freeze. Hands where we can see them. Kafka's head snapped up to see a Defense Force patrol team, weapons trained on him. They wore the familiar black uniforms, carried the standard-issue neutralization rifles, and looked at him with the professional wariness of soldiers who'd seen too many kaiju incidents. Kafka Hibino, he said quickly, keeping his hands visible. Officer, 3rd Division, Defense Force. Serial number. We know who you are, the team leader interrupted, lowering his weapon slightly. You've been listed as MIA for 4 days. Captain Ishiro has the entire division searching for you. What happened? Where have you been? For days. The same amount of time he'd spent in the Monsterverse. At least time seemed to flow consistently between dimensions. It's complicated. I need to contact Captain Ishiro immediately. And I need to get to the dimensional rift location. There's something I have to do there. The what rift? Kafka realized these soldiers had no idea about the tear in reality that existed in their world. Why would they? It was underwater, hidden, generating energy signatures that probably looked like standard kaiju activity on their monitors. Just trust me. I need to speak with Captain Ishiro. Now, the team leader spoke into his radio, his eyes never leaving Kafka. Command, this is Patrol 7. We have Hibino. Repeat, we have Officer Kafka Hibino. He's requesting immediate contact with Captain Ishiro. Advise. The response was immediate. Maintain position. Captain Ishiro is en route. ETA 8 minutes. Those 8 minutes felt eternal. Kafka sat on the dock, dripping wet, the quantum seal hidden in his waterproof pack, while Defense Force soldiers watched him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. He could feel the rift's energy even from here, a subtle pulling sensation, like the world itself was trying to tell him something wasn't finished. A military transport screeched to a halt at the dock's entrance. Captain Mina Ishiro emerged, her silver hair catching the fading sunlight, her expression carefully neutral. But Kafka had trained under her long enough to see the relief in her eyes. Officer Hibino, she said formally as she approached. You have exactly 2 minutes to explain your unauthorized absence before I have you arrested for desertion. I was pulled through a dimensional rift into an alternate universe where kaiju the size of mountains are worshipped as gods, fought alongside a creature called Godzilla. And now I need to seal that rift before more kaiju cross over and invade both dimensions. Ashiro's expression didn't change for exactly 3 seconds. Then, that's either the truth or the most creative excuse I've ever heard. Which is it? The truth, Captain. I can prove it. There's a rift approximately 200 meters offshore from this location. Send a submarine with the right sensors, and you'll detect energy signatures that don't match any known kaiju. And he hesitated, then pulled out the quantum seal device. I have technology from the other side. Technology that can close the rift permanently. Ishiro studied the device with her analytical gaze, and Kafka saw the moment she recognized it as genuine. Too sophisticated to be a fabrication, too alien in design to be from their world. You're serious, she said quietly. There's actually another dimension. And you've been there. For 4 days. Met some incredible people, fought some terrifying monsters, and learned that our world isn't the only one struggling with kaiju threats. Kafka met her eyes. Captain, I know how insane this sounds, but I need you to trust me. There's something called Kaiju number 9 that came through the rift. It's dead now, killed in the other dimension, but it said others would follow. If we don't seal the rift, we'll have 2 worlds worth of kaiju to deal with. Ashiro made a decision with the same speed she showed in combat. Director Shinomiya needs to hear this, and we need to verify your claims about the rift. But, Hibino, if you're lying, if this is some kind of breakdown or delusion, then I'll submit to psychiatric evaluation and accept whatever consequences come. But Captain, please. We don't have much time. Within an hour, Kafka found himself at the Defense Force headquarters, standing before a hastily assembled council that included Director General Shinomiya, Vice Captain Sashiro Hashina, and several high-ranking officials he didn't recognize. Kokoru Shinomiya and Rino Ichikawa watched from the back of the room, their expressions oscillating between relief that he was alive and confusion about what was happening. Kafka explained everything. The dimensional rift, the Monsterverse, Godzilla, Monarch, Kaiju number 9's invasion, and subsequent death. He showed them the quantum seal, explained how it worked, described the plan to close the barrier from both sides simultaneously. And you're certain this device won't malfunction and cause further dimensional instability? Director Shinomiya asked, his tone skeptical but not dismissive. Dr. Chun designed it specifically to prevent that. The sealing process will collapse the rift and reinforce the dimensional barrier. Once activated, nothing will be able to cross between our worlds. Including you, Hashina observed. Once you activate that seal, you'll be trapped here. No going back to this Monsterverse place. Kafka nodded. I know. And you're okay with that? Kokoru asked from the back. You met people there, right? Friends? They'll just lose you forever. He thought about Dr. Andrews, about Mark Russell and Dr. Chin, about Colonel Foster and everyone at Monarch who'd treated him like a person instead of specimen. He thought about Godzilla's ancient eyes, studying him with something approaching respect. They'll understand, Kafka said quietly. They knew the risks. And protecting both dimensions is more important than my personal attachments. Director Shinomiya stood. Very well. We'll verify your claims about the rift's location. If confirmed, you'll have Defense Force support to activate this quantum seal. But Hibino, if this is some elaborate hoax, I'll have you court-martialed so fast your head will spin. Understood, sir. The verification took 3 hours. Submarines equipped with advanced sensors confirmed everything Kafka had said, a dimensional rift, approximately 200 meters offshore, generating energy signatures that matched nothing in the Defense Force database. The rift was stable but weakening, and sensors detected movement on the other side. More kaiju, preparing to cross over. We're out of time. Dr. Chen's voice crackled through a communicator Kafka had been given, one that could barely maintain contact across dimensions, but functioned well enough for coordination. Monarch is detecting multiple energy signatures approaching the rift from our side. We need to seal it now. Copy that, Kafka responded, preparing to deploy the quantum seal. He stood on a Defense Force patrol boat, surrounded by soldiers including Kokoru and Rino, who'd insisted on being part of the operation. Captain Ashiro commanded the vessel with her usual efficiency, while submarines positioned around the rift provided cover. Kafka, Kokoru said quietly, moving to stand beside him. You don't have to do this alone. We can help. We're a team. You are helping, Kafka said, managing a smile. Just by being here. But the seal has to be activated by someone with kaiju physiology. It needs my energy signature to function. Then be careful, Rino added. We just got you back. I'd hate to lose you to some dimensional science experiment gone wrong. I'll do my best. The boat positioned itself directly above the rift. Kafka could feel it now, a powerful pulling sensation, like the ocean itself was trying to drag him back to the Monsterverse. Part of him wanted to go, wanted to see Dr. Andrews one more time, wanted to know if Godzilla had noticed his departure. But this was his home. These were his people. And his duty was here. Kafka. Dr. Andrews' voice came through the communicator, distant and distorted. Monarch is ready. On your mark. Defense Force is in position. Captain Ashiro confirmed. Proceed when ready, Officer Hibino. Kafka took a deep breath, grabbed the quantum seal, and dove into the water. The swim down to the rift felt like descending into a dream. Colors shifted, reality bent, and Kafka felt his kaiju form trying to emerge. He let it happen. The transformation would make this easier, would give him the strength and energy the seal needed. In his 12-foot kaiju form, glowing with bioluminescent power, Kafka approached the center of the dimensional tear. He could see through it now, could see the Monarch submarines on the other side, could see weapons positioned to fire at anything that tried to cross, could see the faint outline of something that might have been Dr. Andrews watching from a command center. Activating quantum seal, Kafka reported. 3, 2, 1 mark. He pressed the device against the rift center, and it bonded immediately. Crystalline matrices extending outward like roots seeking purchase. Energy flowed from Kafka's kaiju form into the seal, a draining sensation that made his fortitude drop precipitously. On the Monsterverse side, Dr. Chen activated their seal simultaneously. The dimensional rift began to collapse. It wasn't a gentle process. Reality screamed and thrashed like a wounded animal. The water churned. Physics broke down completely, and Kafka felt himself being pulled in multiple directions at once. His kaiju form struggled to maintain cohesion as the seal drained his energy. 90 seconds that felt like 90 years. Through the collapsing rift, he saw glimpses of the other world. Monarch personnel celebrating. Dr. Andrews standing with her hand pressed against a monitor as if trying to reach through to him. The ocean glowing with Godzilla's distant presence. And then, just before the rift sealed completely, Kafka heard it. Godzilla's roar carrying across dimensions. A sound that somehow conveyed farewell and respect and a promise that they would be remembered. The rift collapsed with a final, soundless implosion. Kafka was thrown backward by the shockwave, his kaiju form reverting to human as the last of his energy was consumed. He floated in the water, exhausted beyond measure, watching as the space where the dimensional tear had existed became just normal ocean. It was done. The barrier was sealed. 2 worlds were safe. Defense Force divers reached him within seconds, pulling him toward the surface. As they broke through, Kafka gasped for air and immediately looked around, half expecting to see some sign of the Monsterverse, some lingering connection. But there was nothing. Just his Tokyo, his world, his home. Did it work? Captain Ashiro demanded as they hauled him onto the patrol boat. It worked, Kafka confirmed, coughing up seawater. The rift is sealed. Nothing's crossing over anymore. Kokoro wrapped him in a thermal blanket, while Reno scanned him with medical equipment. You look terrible, Kokoro said, but her relief was evident. Feel worse, Kafka admitted. But it's over. Both dimensions are safe. Captain Ashiro studied him with that analytical gaze. You saved 2 worlds today, Hibino. That's not something many can claim. The Director General will want a full report. But for now, she actually smiled, a rare expression. Welcome home, Officer Hibino. We missed you. As the patrol boat headed back to dock, Kafka looked out at Tokyo Bay one final time. Somewhere, in a dimension he could never visit again, Godzilla swam through similar waters. Dr. Andrews coordinated Monarch operations. Mark Russell monitored Titan activity. Dr. Chen analyzed data. Colonel Foster trained soldiers. And they would never know what happened to Kafka Hibino, the small kaiju who fought beside gods and proved that courage mattered more than size. But Kafka would remember. He would carry the memories of 2 worlds, 2 battles, 2 chances to be a hero. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. 3 months later, Defense Force Headquarters received a strange transmission. It wasn't addressed to anyone specific, and the origin point was impossible to trace. The signal seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Director Shinomiya played it in his office. with Captain Ishiro and Kafka present. Dr. Eileen Andrews' voice filled the room, slightly distorted but unmistakable. Asterisk, if this message reaches you, it means our dimensional communication experiment worked. We can't reopen the rift, and wouldn't want to, but we found a way to send information across the barrier. Just wanted you to know that your world's kaiju problem helped solve ours. The quantum seal technology you helped us develop has applications for containing Titan nests. You saved lives here, Kafka. More than you'll ever know. Asterisk. A pause, then, asterisk, Godzilla hasn't returned to Tokyo base since you left. We think he's looking for you. Silly, maybe. He's a Titan, not a sentient being with human emotions. But sometimes I swear he remembers. Take care of yourself, Mr. Hibino. And if you ever find a way back, there's a job waiting for you at Monarch. Dr. Andrews, signing off. Asterisk. The transmission ended. Kafka stood there, not trusting himself to speak. Across dimensions, across the barriers of reality itself. His friends remembered him. And Godzilla, the king of the monsters, the Alpha Titan, the creature that had spared his life twice, was looking for him. Well, Director Shinomiya said into the silence, it appears you made quite an impression, Officer Hibino, on humans and Titans alike. Yes, sir, Kafka managed. Good. Because we're assembling a new division, specialists who handle unusual kaiju incidents. Dimensional anomalies, unprecedented threats, situations that require creative thinking. Based on your recent experiences, I'm appointing you as the division's first officer. Kafka blinked. Sir, you proved you can handle the impossible, Hibino. Now, I'm making it official. Report to Captain Ishiro tomorrow for briefing. Dismissed. As Kafka left the office, Kakaru and Reno were waiting in the hallway. So, Kakaru said with a grin, still thinking about that other world. Kafka thought about Godzilla's roar echoing across dimensions, about Dr. Andrews' message, about the promise of a job at Monarch that he could never claim. Sometimes, he admitted. But this is home. These are my people. And there's work to do here. They walked down the hallway together, 3 Defense Force officers ready to face whatever came next. And somewhere, in a dimension separated by an impassable barrier, Godzilla swam through dark waters and remembered the small kaiju who'd fought with courage instead of size, who'd saved children while gods battled, who'd proven that heroes came in every form. The king of the monsters had known many warriors across his millions of years. But he would remember Kafka Hibino, always,